Hi guys, welcome back to Waxing On. It's Wednesday, that means classic rock. And today we're going to look at a band that did a lot of recording in the mid-60s, and their music was very different from everything else that was going on. The band I'm talking about is Velvet Underground. Now, while you may not recognize the name or maybe some of the players, there was one man that came out of that really shaped the sound of the Velvet Underground. The album I'm going to talk about today, it's the words and music of Lou Reed. And this is where really Lou Reed got his, first shot at the big time. Velvet Underground came out, they were popular around the 1966 era. Now at this point, you got to remember, early 1960s, we were listening to the Beatles, we were listening to the Rolling Stones, we had the Animals, Yardbirds, we had Lovin' Spoonful. It was all very kind of poppy, fun music. And all of a sudden comes Velvet Underground with a very avant-garde, edgy sound, alternative music. Some say it was the precursor of new wave and punk rock, but it was very different from what was going on at that time. And around that time, their manager, who took on the job as managing, was Andy Warhol, who you may also remember from the 1960s. So you're mixing this whole new band of musicians together with a very different sound, a very different idea of where music was going. Matching that up with Andy Warhol, you can imagine what we're looking at. Not your typical 60s music. The album I have here is The Best of Velvet Underground, the words and music of Lou Reed. Now, Lou Reed made a name for himself with the Velvet Underground and certainly went off and had a great solo career. And he's one of those guys that everybody seems to know about. And he's made himself, into a legend, but not in the way regular musicians did. I mean, I don't remember seeing him on many TV shows. You don't remember hearing a lot of airplay. FM radio came along, yes, and we got some airplay, especially with the solo Lou Reed. I think the first song I can remember was Walk on the Wild Side. But you really didn't get the exposure you would suspect for the, fame he enjoyed and the respect he had from other musicians. So to give you an idea on this, early Velvet Underground, I'm just going to read off some of the names because I'm not familiar with a lot of them either other than Lou Reed. Consisted of Lou Reed on guitar and vocals. We had John Cale, we had guitarist Sterling Morrison, and drummer Mo Tucker. And this who did most of the recordings with them. We also later added Maureen Tucker and Nico as members of the band. Now, this album is, again, a greatest hits, which to me, I like to explore because it gives me a wide variety of what these bands have done. It's not just what's happening during that one album where, that's what their focus was. This tells us what's going on from early on and see how their sound developed or their style developed. And great, it's really interesting listening. Give you some idea what we have on this album. And some of the tunes may be familiar to you. Waiting for the Man, Femme Fatale, Run, 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 Heroin, All Tomorrow's Parties, It'll Be Your Mirror, White Light, White Heat, Stephanie Says, What Goes On, Beginning to See the Light, Pale Blue Eyes, I Can't Stand It, Lisa Says, Rock and Roll, and Sweet Jane. Again, Sweet Jane was another one that from Velvet Underground era that would stick in my mind. I know the Waiting for the Man, the White Light, White Heat, but Sweet Jane was one that kind of stuck out. If you remember when we did the Cowboy Junkies episode, that was one of his albums, one of the songs they recorded on their first album, and a very acoustic, hypnotic version of Sweet Jane, which quite different from what we're getting from Velvet Underground and quite different from what he performed once he was doing solo acts. Lou Reed had a great career. It's great to see where he started from, and you can really identify a lot of the same sounds, and the style was already there. I mean, by the time he turned solo, he was just continuing on what was going on with Velvet Underground, from my opinion. It was a band that I don't think a lot of people were familiar with, but if you're at all a Lou Reed fan, go back and check it out, or maybe you already have. It is available on the streaming networks. You can still buy hard copies. It's still around. It was very ahead of its time, and music still stands up well today. I mean, some of the sounds are very 60-ish in the way the guitars were, amped and the sounds of what they were doing. but still the whole style of what they were doing is very exciting to go back and explore. So if you get a chance, check them out. Velvet Underground featuring Lou Reed. And certainly check out Lou Reed's solo repertoire as well. There's some great albums out there to enjoy. Okay, that's it for today. It's Wednesday. Everybody have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday when we're going to do another band from Vancouver. And again, very hard to classify, so we put it in our Friday potpourri where anything goes. Hope to see you then. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Take care. Talk to you Friday.